I'm going to call the finance meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Romano, support by Sauger. Comments, questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 11-0. Approval of the minutes dated September 13, 2017. Moved by Kraft, support by Lucido. Comments, questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard?
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Joseph Hunt, 8306 Stanley, homeowner and taxpayer from the City of Warren. I was looking over on the table for the agendas. I didn't see them when I had come in, so I'm relying upon my memory of the online package that's available on the website. Within your packet today, you have the apportionment report, and I think it's an excellent breakdown and dissertation of all the communities within Macomb County, as well as the school districts, to show what the effective tax rate is. I look forward every year to looking at the equalization reports and the appropriation reports for bean counting purposes. So I do want to praise the equalization director for the wonderful compilation of information. Also on the agenda today is the budget for the Human Resources and Labor Relations Department. And I guess one of the things that I was looking at there, because I look at the check registers on a religious basis, that I have some questions on the legal consultant fees that are currently being paid this year, and more so I have a question on whether or not they appear within the budget for next year. The area of concern is so far this year we have $57,000, $57,861 being paid in bills to Keller Toma, and that's under a supply and service classification or line item of legal consultation fees. You can look at the check registers, you see it. I added them all up for your purposes. And at the same time, I saw another $10,922 that was paid to Keller Toma for legal consultation fees that were taken from the appropriations supplies and services. The main bullet point there is this Keller Toma law firm, an employment law firm, has also been paid $118,000 in legal fees through the corporate counsel supplies and services. Because this is talking about next year's budget, perhaps you, as the keeper of the funds, fiduciary of the taxpayers, can perhaps ask the question from the Human Resource Director on exactly where the 2017 supplies and services that was budgeted for $73,436 was amended by almost $56,000 to $129,000. And of course, next year, the recommendation for supplies and services has been knocked down to $33,400. So there's almost like a reduction in $100,000 in what has been being suggested by HRLR. But my question is what is Keller Toma doing for legal consultation fees? I'm floored by the numbers of the amount of money that's being spent. And the reason I bring this up is because there was something that came over in a public document from the Assistant Corporate Counsel that indicated that HRLR is not a legal entity. So I guess my question would be is why are these legal consultation fees being taken out of the supplies and services of HRLR when in fact that we have a corporate counsel that could be doing the same thing for free? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll end the hearing of the public. Budget reviews, Human Resources and Labor Relations. Ms. Bathanti, do I say that correctly?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Human Resources budget can be found on page C44 of your budget document. And really, there's not a lot going on in Human Resources. They're adding no new positions for 2018. I think most significantly, there's been a reclassification of the special projects line item that HR used or has used for a number of years for legal services, as Mr. Hunt just pointed out, for arbitration hearings, Act 312 hearings, grievance hearings, that sort of thing. So that has historically been accounted for in special projects, which budgetarily rolls up to supplies and services. What we've done in 2018 is pulled $50,000 out of that line item and increased the contract services line item. So we have a line item within that category titled Contract Services Legal. So we're trying to correct that sort of thing, make it a little clearer going forward. So you'll see that the contract services line item has gone from $11,000 in 17 to $81,000 in 18. $50,000 is of that increase is just what I spoke about. In addition, Ms. Bathanti has requested another $20,000 for 2018, and she can speak more to that if you so desire. Regarding supplies and services, you'll see that the amended budget for 2017 was $129,000. The original budget in that line item, as adopted, was $85,200. Again, $50,000 of that represented special projects for legal services. We also came to you earlier this year when Eric Herpich was still the director and asked for a increase of $44,000 in that same special projects line item. And the reasoning for that at the time was, if you'll recall, in 2017, we added an attorney position in Corp Counsel to handle some of our internal legal matters. That person didn't come on board until May, so we were still using outside counsel for the first 4 or 5 months of the year. So we transferred $44,000 of the budget from Corp Counsel into HR. The net effect of all this is the supply and service budget exclusive of this legal fee matter as adopted in 2017 was about $35,200. We've reduced that slightly, very slightly, to $33,400 for 2018. So I know it's a little bit confusing because there's a few things going on there, but at the end of the day, essentially what's happening is Human Resources is asking for an additional $20,000 allocation for outside legal services. That's the simplest way to put it. Again, no new positions, and everything else is consistent among their budgetary line items. So I'll leave my comments to that. If you have any questions for me, certainly ask them, or I'll turn it over to Karen.
There are questions for you. Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Steve, you kind of answered my question, because normally when we have an increase in one of your line items, we see a corresponding decrease in another, unless we were actually requested as a board to increase the funding for that department during the year. So you're saying, and of course you remember better than I do or any of us, you guys did come to us for that increase from $85,200 to $129,356, whether
Yes.
it be in one or several different, okay.
One request.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact month, but it was earlier during the summer.
Okay, that's fine. I had a question on that, but you pretty much answered. I just wanted to be clear with everybody that that's what happened. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead with Karen then.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How are you? I teased with Steve, this was my opportunity to ask for everything. No? And he said not so much, right? So, yeah, Peter Jensen and Corporation Counsel has been a wonderful addition to their team. He has definitely helped us with some of our legal issues, arbitrations, lawsuits, etc. That definitely has cut the number of phone calls we're making to outside legal counsel. However, with our sheriff's department groups and the possibility of Act 312 binding arbitration, we do need expertise in that area outside of Corporation Counsel. So we definitely are concerned going into negotiations that we will definitely need that outside counsel adjustment made to our budget.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anybody requesting to speak on here. Okay, well, Commissioner Toko beat you to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen, are there any positions in the clerk's office at this time that are temporarily moved to your office?
Yes.
Is that the plan to go forward, or is that a temporary plan?
Just temporary for this week.
Okay, so it's just
It was last week and this week.
okay. And is that that's how you want to keep it at this point, or is it?
That position is moving to the courts on Monday,
Okay, thank you.
6th floor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one's for Steve. Sorry. Steve, as you're coming up, maybe I didn't word this correctly before, but can you explain me why, when you're presenting the budget to us to take a look at, you actually go into it and you'll say, for example, 2015 actual, 2016 actual, 2017 actual through July 31st, 2017 amended. See, what we need to do, I have to go back into my last year's budget book to see what was approved for 2017 and adopted. Not the number that you're amending, because you're not showing it, and we don't know when we're looking at these budgets. We have to go back and keep looking, because you're providing actuals year to date, which, to be honest with you, you're going to spend money at certain different times. As long as you're under budget at the end of the year, that's what we want. But without you providing that number for us on these, it's really making it difficult, because I don't know, you're allowed 10% within a department. You're not allowed to move from department to department unless it comes over to the board. But now I have to keep going back to the real budget of last year adopted to see what the number's supposed to be, and they're not matching up. Okay, you're $38,000 less than your amended 2017. Why aren't we showing that when you present this?
This is what's required by law. Certainly, we can
You
consider
understand?
adding it. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm
yeah.
talking
So we're
clear.
trying to make the document understandable but not too cluttered. So that doesn't necessarily mean that for working purposes, for example, that we couldn't put in the adopted column.
Well,
So that's something we
should
can
be
certainly consider.
approved 2017 and you're amended,
Right, you,
because as a board, we're going to be voting on this, and you say, well, it was part of the amended budget, it was in front of you. And we don't know unless you go back and look to see what the actual adopted was.
right. So what you're asking, if I'm hearing you correctly, is for next year to include a column with the prior year's adopted budget.
I think it's the actual doesn't give us any information. The
Yeah, I think
actual,
that was requested for this year, so we added the actual year-to-date.
that's year to date, so that's kind of useless to us, isn't it? So
Well-
you don't have to make it, what's the useful nature of that?
I think the board requested that this year.
And they may
So
have, I
it-
don't recall.
Okay.
I guess the
All right.
usefulness in my mind would be that you're seeing what the spending pattern is during the year compared to prior years. There's some usefulness there, in my opinion, to
And
see
again-
if you're headed toward the budget, but I also see the usefulness of the adopted number as well.
The adopted, you see, you show 2015, you show 2016 actual, 2017 actual through July 31st, 2017 amended. Well, that doesn't mean that amended was adopted by us. And that means if we vote to approve the budget, we're going to vote on the amended
No, I
2017.
completely understand where
And
you're coming from.
You may not, us board members, unless you're going back like I am through every little thing to see what it was supposed to
Right.
be, they're changing. And we're not getting notified of that change again, unless you're gonna spend 3 hours and go through last year's budget at each line to see what it's supposed to be. And I don't know, I don't feel comfortable without looking at it, and that's why I have to spend my time to go through these things, and I think you already have the information, include it with what you're giving us. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from. Personally, we have time. I mean, it's obviously 9 months before we get into this procedure next year or process. I think we could probably go through and add that for next year. Now, granted, the format might look a little different because it's going to we might have to turn it sideways or something, but that's not a big deal.
Commissioner Brown.
I don't know if it's that big of an imposition to add that. amended actual. I mean,
It's not, we just have to go ahead and insert columns into worksheets. We have plenty of time to do it.
but I mean, doesn't it make sense? We want to know what the last, the adopted. It doesn't seem like Commissioner Carabelli, it makes a good point. It doesn't seem like it's asking.
No, I'm not
Should be
arguing
quick.
that it is
Should-
unreasonable.
I mean, it's obviously we want to see actual because we want to track the numbers. That's what I wanted. I think
Right.
that's a good thing to do. Now, don't take it out.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we would take it out. What I'm suggesting was we would add the adopted for next year.
Well, shouldn't that have been in there to begin with? I mean, isn't that pretty basic? Is that a fundamental thing if we're trying to review a budget to see what the.
Yeah, we were trying to get the format to comply with state law, is what we were doing. Not that we can't, at least for working purposes,
All right, thank
insert
you.
the other information, so you,
Okay.
can, deliberate the budget as you see fit.
Well, my point was I wanted to see the actual in there, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carabelli? I'm sorry, Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It still ends with an I. It's okay. It still ends with an I. This question's for Karen. Karen, come on up. The compensation study, I was looking at your supplemental worksheet, and one of your goals for 2018, of course, is to classify the compensation study. Where are we at on that? Do we know when that's going to come out?
Yeah, absolutely. The project is moving along. We just received market data, so we are analyzing that. We were able to match about 90% of our positions with what's out in the market, so that was really good news. The recommendations are coming through in regards to who should be exempt, what position should be exempt and non-exempt. So we're hoping sometime in December, our team will come out and do a presentation just to our staff, and then we'll move forward with more presentations to the OCE and to our department heads, union leadership, and then talk about implementation. We do have wage reopeners next year, so this is probably the number one topic on our union's minds, to how this
Sure.
study is going to impact them.
This is just a general question, and you may not even have an answer for it, but it's like the dilemma that we have here on this board, and if you're self-employed, it's a dilemma too, is, okay, do we hire more people? The budget departments are asking for 24 new people.
Sure.
Executive is recommending 16. And then the other side of it is, okay, do I not hire more people, and do I pay the people that I have more for the work they're doing? So these variables are all there, and what we have to decide in terms of this budget. And this may be premature because we don't have the compensation study. So you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to go on the line. Do you have a gut feeling on what you think is a better approach? Obviously certain departments need positions. I get that. But should we be compensating the people that we have here? Because one of the other goals in your supplemental worksheet is retain.
Right.
Retain and recruit good talent here. And I know Commissioner Saugers talked about this quite a bit with the Sheriff's Department. We've got a lot of talent coming out of these academies, and they go right past Macomb County. They decide to go to other municipalities or other counties in terms of beginning their career in law enforcement. And so, what's your gut thought on that? If you want to go on a limb.
I have a few thoughts. The county has 1,900 positions, and we don't need 1,900 positions for 2,600 people. So when I look at our group of employees, I define it as bookends. We have our leadership group, and then we have just a ton of entry-level positions. I think we need to take care of our leaders in this organization and make sure that they are doing what they need to do in regards to mentoring, coaching, so that this middle group of employees find interest and it desirable to be a leader here in our organization, so that they don't leave and go somewhere else for more money. They have to see the value of being a public servant. So our leaders need to do that. This group here is it's fluid. They're coming and going and moving. We need to concentrate on this group of employees, our entry level, and help them guide their careers through the county and show value again in the 30 plus departments that we have. There's a home for them outside of that entry level position. So there's a financial aspect to retaining employees, but I also, and I'm a true believer that money doesn't motivate. And I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to argue that with me, of course. I tell the unions that all the time, that I don't believe that. I think there are some positions that need more pay. for sure. But you have to also look at, too, we have many departments where there's a lot of overtime opportunities for them. We can't constantly do that and continue doing that. We're burning our staff out. And there are certain departments that have pools of part-time employees that supplement. That seems to work nicely for those employees or those departments that have a lot of overtime. So, I don't know, I'm kind of all over the page with it.
No, I understand.
But I think there's a lot of factors here. We have to celebrate who we are and why this is a great place to work. And if we can get our leaders to understand the value of working here and promoting who we are to the people under them, I think we'll have more success of retaining as well.
And it would be important because if the leaders eventually retire and the middle people have left, now
Right.
we're going to, so, okay.
We don't
All right.
want to always look for leaders outside of the county. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, when we do that. But sometimes we have to because exactly of that reason.
Right.
That middle group has that junior leadership roles have left and have sought employment elsewhere.
Okay, well, thanks. I'll look forward to that study and your analysis sometime soon next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else. I do have a quick follow-up on that. I heard you mention your department, department heads, the county exec's office, the unions. I didn't hear mention of a point where we receive that report and get an opportunity to go over it.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume that at some point that information is going to be available to you. I don't know the process and how it would flow to you. I'm not sure.
All right. Is the actual study done and you're just trying to figure out how to make it work in our...
No, it is not done. We have a handful of questions that need to be answered. We have a handful of positions that we still need to gather some information on.
Okay. I would like to know when that document is completed. I don't know if the rest of the commission feels that way, but if we could follow up and if we could be told when the document is completed. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? All right, motion to receive and file.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Leonetti, support by Tocco. Motion passes 13-0. Department recommendations, 2017 Macomb County Apportionment Report. Director Smigiel. Is there a motion? Moved by Tocco, supported by Lucido.
So the item before you, as indicated in the agenda, is the 2017 Apportionment Report, which is a compilation of all the various millage rates for all the different sorts of millages that are levied throughout the various taxing units throughout the county, cities, townships, villages, schools, HCMA, so on and so forth. Those are spelled out in fair amount of detail, along with the total taxable value by community and what each of those millages generates in terms of tax revenue. There's also information on industrial facility tax properties that Commissioner Drollet was interested in not too long ago. There are also letters in here from several communities who did not properly apply the Headley rollback, so they're filing a corrective action plan, more or less, for the taxes that they over levied, which generally speaking is they're going to give credits on next summer's tax bills. We come to you every year. The board's required to approve this report at its meeting in October by state law. Kristen Seeloff, the equalization director, is here, who can also answer questions about this, probably in more authoritative manner than myself. And so on. So if you have any questions, one of us should be able to answer them for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just first, I've had a couple occasions to contact the Equalization Department and ask questions on a couple of issues, and they've always done an outstanding job in responding. They seem to be very professional and know exactly what they're doing, so I appreciate
Absolutely.
that work
Absolutely.
and that the department
Our
does.
staff are great.
Yes, they are. My question pertains to what I was asking about last week when we received a receiving file regarding a corporate welfare or corporate tax abatement that was granted. And it seemed inappropriate to vote against a receiving file. My question is, it was kind of mentioned that perhaps I needed to vote against the apportionment report if I didn't like the special breaks given out to specific companies, with regard to their property taxes. But that seems a little weird too, voting against the apportionment report because I disagree with the county waiving the taxes for a particular corporation or so. I guess my question is, does the county have any vote which we cast on whether or not we want to waive taxes for specific companies? Or are we just receiving file and those decisions are all made at the local level and they're imposed upon us as a county and we have no choice in that matter?
I spoke with Kristen on this, and she's prepared to answer.
Good afternoon, everybody. In response to your question, yes and no.
Oh.
I
don't know if I can vote yes and no.
So let me enlighten you a little bit on the process.
Okay.
So if there's an applicant in a local unit that wishes to receive an abatement, they have to first make sure that there's an industrial development district for the specific parcel or parcels that they're looking to have the abatement on. There's certain things that you can have abated. Land is never abated, okay? So it's just for new facilities, rehabs, and new machinery and equipment that would be coming in. So they come to the local unit and say, hey, we would like to apply for an abatement. There's an development district already on that particular parcel, so we want to make application. So there are two public hearings that are held during the process. The first one is when the development district is established, and that's where the local unit has the most say. Because once they've agreed to establish the district on that particular site, that gives the property owner or the occupant, in this case, this is a tenant coming before the township, they can make application, and it's really difficult for the township or city board to come back and say, no, we're not going to give you the exemption certificate. Because, well, then why did you give it a development district in the first place? So at the point where the district has been established and the company or the applicant comes and makes application for this exemption, basically the township or the city has jurisdiction over the number of years. Okay, and typically these run anywhere from 1 to 12 years. It can be technically extended to 14 years, but typically they're 1 to 12 years, depending on the wording of the resolution. This board, because it's a taxing entity, taxing authority, has the right to come to the public hearing and make their case known, say why or why not you're in support of this. But it's only at the public hearing, which happened last night on the particular one. So what the townships and the cities do is they'll give you guys notice that the public hearing is being held, because that's your opportunity to come and say, hey, we like it or we don't. But the better time to do that is when the development district is being held. Because once the district has been formed, it's difficult to say no. And the State Tax Commission will get into, no, you can't really, it has to be a real good reason why you wouldn't accept the application. And the final application, once it's approved at the local level, it does go to the State Tax Commission for final approval.
Okay, but it never comes to us for
No.
a final approval.
No, it does not.
So our involvement would be primarily beneficial or effective if the county were for some reason to go to this local hearing and weigh in. Yet if the local municipality overrides, let's suppose that the county does weigh in and says we don't want this to be a tax for some reason, we could be overridden, and then we have no choice as to whether or not
Right.
we have to forego taxes on that particular
Right.
unit.
And just so that you know, this is not something that's done lightly. Typically, our planning department here is involved with the local units because the idea about these abatements is to bring new business to that locale. So, this is a parcel. I used to work for Shelby Township. This is a parcel that I went by for years
Right.
as an appraiser. It's been empty for years.
Right.
Everybody, all the taxing authorities will still get the taxes that have been levied on the land since they started levying assessments on that, okay? By allowing an abatement to occur, you now have a 22,000 square foot improvement to that land.
Sure.
You're going to generate half the taxes.
The argument obviously is that, I remember a case in the state legislature where an abatement was granted for Boar's Head meats because we would get that new revenue as a state. But we've had a meat company in Michigan for 137 years that doesn't get a dime off that processes meat, that now has to pay much higher taxes than the newcomer, Boar's Head Meat, and can undercut them in the marketplace because they got a lot lower taxes than the established businesses that have been here and providing jobs for decades in many cases. So it's a fun argument to have.
Yeah.
I guess I'm more curious as to whether or not what our role is in, being told that we are required to provide that corporate welfare break, but we have no say over it.
Well, and again, if you came to the public hearings and made a persuasive argument as to why the abatement shouldn't be granted or the district wouldn't be granted, I'm sure the township board, in this case Shelby Township, would have given that, the consideration that was due in determining whether or not to even
Right.
establish the district.
But we don't even have a say in that. They may or may not. It's up to the local unit.
Yeah, you have a say. You can make your protest.
Right.
But it's like
But we don't have a vote.
You don't have a vote.
Okay. That's essentially what it boils down to, what I needed to know. I appreciate that explanation. It was very thorough. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just so that you know, in this case, the county taxes that are, I did calculate that for you guys, and the amount of taxes that this improvement would have generated at full was $2,425 per year, and because of the abatement, it's $1,212.
I mean, it's obviously a bigger dollar amount at the local level and other levels. We're a relatively small percentage as the county tax. Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Majek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very interesting, Leon, a Republican talking about corporate welfare. Okay, so I have questions for anybody out there in the audience. I'm looking on page 10 with the little pie chart here. Just a couple questions on that. First thing would be the simpler question would be the personal property tax elimination. Okay, so because that was passed, why are we still seeing taxable value under the personal columns? I think I asked this a year ago, but I cannot remember the reason why.
So there's three different kinds of
Right.
personal property. Utility is always going to be there.
Okay.
Okay, so there is no exemption in place at this time for utility property. Commercial personal has the 80,000 or less exemption, small business tax, small business exemption. The industrial is in the phase-out stages, and it will not be completely phased out until 2023. So, but that being said, the industrial, the eligible manufacturing personal property exemption is only for those entities that apply for it.
I understand.
So there's a chance that some, there are still some out there that aren't applying for it, and they're paying full ad valorem.
I did that in my business, actually, but I missed out a year or two, but I figured it out.
Yeah, so you'll continue to see industrial personal property taxable value until 2023, and potentially much smaller amounts beyond. For those that
Does
did
the
not file.
industrial phase-out relate to the ballot proposal PPT tax elimination?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was for those two line items there, right? Commercial and industrial, that's all.
For those two line items?
Line items, here, I'm looking at your personal commercial,
Personal industrial.
Oh,
and then
yes.
personal industrial, yeah. I'm looking on page 10 here.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just a sort of comment on that, if you look at the other pie chart here, the lower right, it has residential being 73% makeup of all the properties. You know, kind of gets to what Leon talks about is over the years, over decades, as these abatements are being granted and as the elimination of personal property tax is being phased out and worked in there, obviously that residential pie gets bigger because the municipalities have to make that up. So I'm sure 20, 30, 40 years ago, residential makeup was probably a smaller portion, just my personal opinion there. So now if we look here at the other column here, and this is for maybe some of the new commissioners, taxing unit, you got the county there all the way down to cities, and the total taxes, that's what we pay in our tax bill, what we get. So I have a question, Steve. So when I pay my taxes, I live in Sterling Heights, I write a check to the city of Sterling Heights for my taxes. It goes to them, and then do they disperse that to the county? How's the county get that money?
It comes from the locals.
From the locals to the finance department or something?
Most of them wire their money, and it
Okay.
comes through the treasurer's office.
So city treasurer's office to the county treasurer's
Correct.
office? Okay. So my question here now relates to revenue sharing and the loss of revenue sharing. I'm looking here at some numbers that Mike O'Meara gave to us last week. That he attended a Michigan Municipal League forum about this, and the city of Sterling Heights lost $44 million in revenue sharing from 2003 to 2016. I'm just wondering, does that apply to any of the taxes? That would be actually under cities, the very bottom one. So when you talk about revenue loss for the communities, is there, which line item is that applied to in here, if that makes sense?
There's nothing in
Nothing
here
in there.
about revenue sharing.
Okay.
At all.
So revenue sharing is because of that deals with what the liquor tax?
Sales tax.
Sales tax. Okay.
Yeah, we receive separate funding for the liquor tax.
Okay, so can you just do me a favor, explain to me, how much do we pay in sales tax? How does that work, that process, the flow of
How much
that?
do we receive?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
I go and buy a hamburger somewhere, I'm paying sales tax on that, was that 6% or something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I pay that, and then that money goes to the state
Goes
government?
to the state of Michigan, then they disperse to all the counties throughout, and all the locals
Okay.
throughout the state, depending on if
Okay.
it's statutory or constitutional.
Oh, okay, so there's an actual law in line
Yeah,
that
the Revenue
says
Sharing Act that
a percentage, each community has to receive this amount. So now, when the state does not, when we have a loss of revenue sharing, how does the state get away with that? Shorting everybody, how is that within the law, I guess?
Well, there's, depending on, if you're a local unit.
Right.
There's some constitutional guarantees.
Okay.
We're a county, so it's more discretionary, it's statutory. So for a county, the state can just reduce revenue sharing at their discretion. And they've done that in various
Right.
times over the years that I've been here.
But let me ask you this question. So for example, City of Sterling Heights, have they lost out a bigger percentage of revenue sharing than, say, the county, Macomb County government?
I don't know that.
Like, do counties get more money than the cities, or you don't know that?
I
do
don't
you?
know that.
Okay. I guess that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll make the motion to receive and file this apportionment report. So, thank you.
We already did it. Thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve and Kristen, I just wanted to thank you, and I see Joe Romano's coming up behind me, but on behalf of Joe and I, thank you for helping us with our math earlier. I also want to say, Kristen, you guys do a good job. You know what I mean? You know your stuff.
I did an excellent job on this
Well,
apportionment.
I even like that. That's even a better.
Yeah.
So, yes, you do an excellent job. In fact, Commissioner Lucido and I were commenting on just how sharp you are at everything. So appreciate your good work. Thank you. You have good answers. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
They're gonna give me the
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to Leon, Mr. Drillette's, Commissioner Drillette's questions about the IFECs. Back in Sterling Heights, we used to have, and in fact, we still have people that show up at every meeting when these abatements are giving out, and they object to them because it takes away from the schools and it takes away from, and the question is this, and I'll use somebody for an example, Amazon, who went just recently to Shelby, is that correct? Okay, so Amazon goes to Shelby and says, listen, I'd like a IFEC because we're coming in new, we're bringing in a new product, we'd like an abatement. And Shelby says to him, you know what, I don't think we want to do that. Do you honestly think for the numbers that Amazon's going to stay in Shelby? Or would they start looking in Sterling Heights or Harrison or whatever you? This is an inducement for businesses, or I should say it's an inducement for the Sterling Heights, for the businesses, so that when they come into us, they realize that they can give these abatements. I've been giving abatements to businesses for God knows how long, and I've been chastised for it. For example, why would Chrysler, who gets abatements continuously, Ford, somebody just put $1 billion into that. Why would they want to do that if in fact we did? People say to me, well, they're going to do it anyway. Are you willing to gamble that they're going to do it anyway, or would they just shut down and say, you know what, we're not going to do these improvements, we're not going to bring in this new machinery, we're not going to do all this personal property because we're not getting abatements, they don't have to do that. So the state says to them, go to the municipalities, give it a shot. As far as we're concerned, you can do this, but you still need local municipality approval. So when they come to us, we do that. And on the second part of that, we give these 7, 6, whatever year abatements that they're for because they're hiring employees and they're doing machinery improvement and bringing in. If they don't comply with that, and they're checked on that by the local assessor, if they don't comply with that, they pay. Now, we've had one that shut down on us after 3 years, and we gave them a 7-year. They got to pay. They got to come back. We went after them, and we made them pay. So taking that into consideration, that's the reason for those and the reasons that we do give them. Am I real crazy about it? I agree with Commissioner Gillette. No, that's less money we're receiving, but these are things, it's something that you have to swallow in order to maintain those businesses as far as I'm concerned. Let me go to Commissioner Smigiel, that $40 million. The state balanced their budget on Sterling Heights back. And it's no other way to say it. It's that simple. Not only Sterling Heights, but all the municipalities. They took away that tax and the money that we should legally entitled to. They say, no, we're going to keep that and give you a lower percentage. How do you make up that $40 million? And where does it all trickle down to? We all know where it goes down to, the individual taxpayer. So now we're going to be in a hole for a whole lot of money. How are we going to recoup that? Hopefully we can come back to when the state starts doling that out, and that's all they do is dole it out. We're not going to get anywhere near that kind of money. So it's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and before I call on Commissioner Carabelli, I see Commissioner Gillette's press the button again. What I don't want to do is have a debate between commissioners on something we have no authority over. So if that's why you press the button, I hope you will consider to withdraw. With that, I'll call on Commissioner Carabelli.
A couple of things. First of all, Steve, you came up and you had mentioned that there was I believe you said an overcharge on the industrial. Is that what you said?
It depends on what levy
In
it
the
is.
very beginning, you said
Yeah, there's
they're going to
a
give
few
a credit back
communities.
in the spring taxes. What was that again you said?
So there's a few communities that did not apply the millage reduction fraction.
For what portion of the tax?
Depends on what particular millage it is, actually. Sterling Heights, for example, I think was on a recreation millage. I don't know them all by heart, but what they've done is on certain millages, could be a new millage. In some instances, they didn't apply the millage reduction fraction, so they basically over-levied on this summer's taxes, and they're going to give credits on next summer's taxes.
Okay. My question is, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
Well, it depends on the particular millage. The millage that Commissioner Leonetti and Commissioner Romano were talking about was 58 cents on a $100,000 assessed value home. It was .0058 mils. Yeah, generally nothing significant. I don't know the total dollars, but
25,000. I just yeah.
well,
I
for
just
City Sterling
calculated.
Heights, the total
Over levy.
was 23,000 for the entire city.
Okay, because I'm going back when you said that, I got nervous because I remember Romeo Ford plant, they fought their assessment years back, and then the community almost bankrupt trying to pay that, but figure out how they were going to take
Another
care.
example, I'm looking at
You
the
didn't
East,
get in depth on it, and I just felt that I had to
the East
ask.
Point, they over levied by .0045 mils, which would be 45 cents on a $100,000 house, kind of thing.
Okay. My other question is this. You brought up that some of the property owners here in our county And Commissioner Myjak said, yes, I was one of those. They didn't apply for their exemption for the personal property. Is that what you're saying? Some companies did not apply for that, and therefore they're not receiving it?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple of them.
All right. My concern, and I'm only speaking for myself, I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners here, but I think it's upon us to make sure that everybody knows who has a business here, that they're not overpaying taxes and get taken advantage of. And if there's something there that they should be filing to make sure that they're paying the appropriate amount, I, for one, want to make sure that that information is disseminated to all the business owners to make sure it's all being done the right way and fairly to everybody. So I don't know how.
If I can, through the chair, the local communities send out a letter. There's a deadline, I think, from February 10th or February 20th for that. The local communities send that letter out. So it just happened that I missed that letter, misplaced it. But that's the responsibility of the locals to do that.
Okay, I understand that. Again, one commissioner, I don't think that if we know somebody's overpaying, and I don't want that gotcha thing, because I want those businesses to stay here and not feel that they got taken advantage of.
My comment was there are a couple of businesses that are choosing to not file for the exemption, and yes, that's the same face I made. There's one in Mount Clemens that is not filing it because they would rather just pay the ad valorem taxes and not have to deal with the hassle at the state, because it's the program, you know, we get the information in at the local level, it's then exported out to the state, it then goes to the state website, then it's on the property owner to go in there and register and do everything and make their payments by a certain amount of time and all of that. And the one taxpayer in Mount Clemens said, I have enough trouble with income taxes and all of that through the state that I do not trust this program, and I'm absolutely flat out refusing. And the assessor asked me, can we make them? And I said, no, it's an application for an exemption. We can't make anybody apply for an exemption. We make them aware of it, and all the local units are really good at doing that, but we cannot make somebody apply for it. That's,
Okay.
you know.
I just, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, on the first round, Commissioner Duge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good report.
Thank you.
By looking at this, Warren has got over levied also. So I'm sure that we'll have something close to Sterling Heights, 25,000, whatever it is. But my question goes to the rate request. There are a variety of reasons why somebody would want to get their property abated and they're going in. Now, the Amazon has been called out here. Didn't Amazon, wasn't there a brownfield authority involved in that also?
There's a lot of rehab, you know,
There's
to
a ton of
space.
things that go into that.
Yeah.
Being that it's a brownfield doesn't show up on any of these rate requests that I've seen. Can you touch a little bit on how a brownfield authority works as far as the rate requests and why it is not included in this list? And I'm looking at the city of Warren just for, I really don't care what's going on in Sterling Heights. But is there, will brownfield authorities be listed on any of this?
Are you referring to the actual apportionment report?
Yeah.
Or the.
Well, it wouldn't be listed on the millage because it doesn't affect
I
the millage
don't
rate.
think that we list them separately on the apportionment report.
No,
I
we
don't
do
think they're
not.
listed separately, Commissioner.
Well,
The wind zones are, but not the brownfields.
Right, and the TIFAs and the DDAs
Yeah,
and all those
I don't think the
are
brownfields are on here.
listed.
are they?
No, I don't
No,
think
they're
so.
not.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
But there are tax breaks for brownfields, tax breaks for TIFAs, although TIFAs can no longer get money because it was sunset in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. They could still collect taxes, but you can't take out any more loans for TIFAs. That's why everybody's gone bananas with DDAs now. But, you know, it's important that we understand that some of these tax breaks are generating, it's better to get $1,000 on a parcel and get a break on the, as opposed to charging $2,000 for 5, 10, for 12 or 14 years. It's better to get something than nothing.
That's exactly what I told my township supervisor when I worked at Independence Township.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better to get 50% of something.
And
than
I have no
100%.
problems with it, although I agree with Commissioner Drollet that there's a certain inequity in it in established businesses. But that being said, if nobody wants to go for an abatement, that's up to them.
Right.
And I can understand why somebody wouldn't, because it really is a pain in the neck. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sauger.
Yes, thank you. This is in regards to Commissioner Romano's remark about the tax abatements. And Commissioner Duje will remember this. Back a few years, General Motors, one of the big tax abatement down in Warren. And there were some people on that council that were not for it. General Motors was threatening to pull out, and they could have pulled out, but they got enough votes and it went through. So them abatements are important, and that thing in Warren was really serious, because if General Motors would have pulled out, you know, who knows what would have gone in there. But it did happen, so abatements are important. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your concern about this spiraling into something beyond the.
Well, and then everybody else. And then everybody else debated
And
it. So
I didn't mean to open that complete can of worms, but obviously I did. I was just concerned when I was going to have a chance to, vote, if there was going to be a chance to vote on that particular issue. And I just want to just point out that I appreciate the perspective of Commissioners Romano, Sauger, and others. I completely understand that the incentives are set up in a way that it puts a lot of local units of government, county governments, everyone in a catch-22 with these, difficult decisions and so forth. So I completely understand that perspective. And, certainly when I was in the legislature, I started out approving a lot of these things. I just changed my mind gradually when I saw that, the bigger you were, the bigger your lobbying arm was, and mom and pop competing against Amazon is now going to pay higher taxes than Amazon. And then, just the injustice of it become a political decision with a lot of lobbying sometimes, not at this level, not the local level necessarily, but, in the big picture of things. And I hope that someday, it won't be here, it won't be this meeting, that there can be found a way to make sure that our taxes are fairly and uniformly applied to folks, rather than, it being political decisions or, leverage type things. So I apologize for broadening this into something beyond the scope of the agenda item. But thank you.
That's okay. No, I wasn't singling you out, but apparently the message didn't get out there because everybody debated anyway. So, okay, and I just want commissioners to realize this is a motion to forward to full board for approval. It's not a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Brown, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
There might be possible, Commissioner Gillette, if you're concerned about it, you might be able to separate an item from the report and vote against it individually if you'd like to at the committee tomorrow or Thursday when we next time meet, should you be so inclined.
Just based on the information I received this evening, it sounds like we don't have a say whether we all vote against this apportionment report or not.
You can express your displeasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion, Commissioner. I think at this point, being that it really won't have an effect even if we all voted against it, but I do appreciate the suggestion and your interest in pointing that out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is everybody ready? Ready. Please vote on your iPad. See, mine doesn't work that well. I have to keep poking it. I think it's dirty or something. Motion passes 13-0. Okay, Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee recommendations. Does anybody oppose taking these in their entirety? All right, I'll seek a motion to take them. Moved by Brown, supported by Romano.
Do have to make a comment though before.
Okay, so we'll call on Commissioner Brown.
With the heavy rains we've had, the roads in north end of the county are basically a sea of mud, and people can't hardly get through the roads. It's really a bad condition, but I want to compliment the road commission for getting out there and working very hard to restore them. I had a lot of calls over the weekend, but within 2 days, I followed up, and they were basically all taken care of. And I want to credit the road commission for getting out there. It might have had something to do with that extra equipment we budgeted for them last year to get out there, but in any case, they're getting, the roads are opened up now. You know, they used to call Romeo Plank a plank road for one reason. They used to put wooden planks on the road so people could actually go over them with their wagons. Well, in some cases, they still need to do that out there, but the road commission's been on the job early this week to keep it up. So thanks a lot, and I'll be able to get to my meetings on time now because I won't have to cross the mud-filled, pothole-ridden road. With the wagon. The cows might still get in the way, but the roads are in good shape now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Please vote on your iPads. It's not this one, it's the one over there. Motion passes 13-0. Okay, Justice and Public Safety Committee recommendation. Budget Amendment Prosecutor's Office for the grant. Is there a motion? Moved by Toko, supported by Sagar. Are there any questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 13-0. New business. Is there any new business? Commissioner Lucido.
Well, we kind of missed Patty's birthday last week.
Oh.
So I just want to let everybody know that we did give her a gift today from all of us. So,
thank you.
Happy belated birthday. You're fired. I know. I'm sorry. I was a little late.
Okay. Yeah. With that, I'll call on public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Motion to adjourn by Duge, supported by Toko. Please vote on your iPad.